All right, you degenerates, welcome back to another deep dive.
Back at it again?
This time we're going balls deep into Kyiv.
That's right.
You know that place everyone's been shitting their pants over lately?
Yeah, can't get away from it.
You've heard the headlines, but let's cut the crap and get into the weird shit they don't tell you on CNN.
Right.
We're talking Kyiv's history, culture, all that juicy stuff buried in this Wikipedia article.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a real expert here to guide us through this shit show.
I've been knee-deep in this stuff. It's a wild ride, man.
I bet.
Kyiv's history is like a Game of Thrones episode.
Okay.
Directed by Quentin Tarantino.
Oh, Jesus.
Bloodshed, backstabbing, and enough plot twists to make your head spin.
Sounds about right.
Ah.
Okay, so let's start with the OG bullshit.
Okay.
The founding myths.
All right.
This Wikipedia article says Kyiv was founded by three brothers.
Right.
Ky, Shchek, and Korev.
The classic trio.
And their sister Libid.
Can't forget Libid.
Sound like some made-up crap to me. What's the real deal?
Well, the primary chronicle, our main source for this early period, claims they set up shop in 482 CE. But archaeologists are like, hold up, this shit doesn't add up.
Right.
The evidence points to a later founding, maybe in the 6th or 7th century.
So basically, we don't know for sure when this whole Kyiv thing kicked off.
Not exactly.
Typical history move.
Yeah.
Keeping things vague as fuck.
Yeah, they love to do that.
But hold on, this article also mentions some ancient map by Ptolemy.
Oh, yeah.
With a settlement called Azagarium. Right where Kyiv is supposed to be. What the hell is that about?
That's where it gets interesting. Some scholars think Azagarium might be an early reference to Kyiv.
Really?
Yeah, predating the legendary founding. Imagine that a city with a secret identity hiding in plain sight on a 2,000-year-old map.
Damn, that's some next-level historical sleuthing.
It is.
So before those mythical siblings supposedly showed up, who was running the show in Kyiv?
Yeah.
Was it just a bunch of dudes chilling in the woods? Or was there some actual civilization going on?
Well, before the Vikings crashed the party, Kyiv was under the thumb of the Khazar Empire.
Okay.
These guys were like the mafia of the Eurasian steppes.
Oh, wow.
Controlling trade routes, demanding tribute, and generally being badasses.
Khazars, huh? Sounds like a bunch of dudes you wouldn't want to mess with.
No.
This article says Kyiv might have been called Sambat under their rule.
Yeah.
Sambat.
Not quite as, intimidating.
Sounds like a name some trust fund kid would give their pet iguana.
Exactly.
Yeah, not the most intimidating name for a major city, but hey, what's in a name?
Right. What matters is that Kyiv, whatever they called it back then, was strategically positioned on the trade route between the Varangians.
Varangians.
Yeah, aka those Viking badasses.
Oh, the Vikings, right.
And the Greeks down south.
Wait, Vikings in Ukraine? I thought those dudes were busy raiding monasteries in England and shit.
Right.
How the hell did they end up in Eastern Europe?
Well, think of it this way. Kyiv was like the Vegas of the 9th century. A place where fortunes were made, empires clashed, and shit was constantly going down.
That's what I'm talking about.
It was the ultimate crossroads.
Right.
Connecting Scandinavia, the Byzantine Empire, and the Islamic world.
Wow.
Whoever controlled Kyiv controlled the flow of goods, slaves, and ideas.
So it was basically a giant honeypot for anyone with a sword and a lust for riches.
Pretty much, yeah.
Makes sense.
The Vikings, those entrepreneurial bastards, realized they could make a killing in Kyiv.
Uh-huh.
So in the mid-9th century, they sailed down the Dnieper River and sacked the city.
Typical Viking move. Smash and grab, then set up shop.
Exactly.
So these Vikings, did they just pillage Kyiv and bounce, or did they decide to stick around and make themselves at home?
They were smarter than your average barbarians.
Okay.
They realized Kyiv was a gold mine, so they basically took over and established what became known as Kievan Rus'.
Kievan Rus.
They even made Kyiv their capital, turning it into a major power player in Eastern Europe.
So Kyiv went from being run by the Khazar mafia to being ruled by a bunch of Viking thugs.
It's a wild ride.
Sounds like a pretty rough neighborhood. But wasn't Kyiv also a big deal in the religious world?
Absolutely.
This Wikipedia article mentioned something about Orthodox Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Kyiv became a major center for Eastern Orthodox Christianity. They adopted the Byzantine rite, built magnificent churches, and even developed their own unique style of religious art.
Think of it as the Renaissance.
Right.
But with more beards and fewer naked cherubs.
I can dig it. Okay, so we've got Vikings, Orthodox priests, and enough trade going on to make Jeff Bezos jealous.
Yeah.
Sounds like Kyiv was having a pretty good run. So how long did this Kievan Rus' party last?
For a few centuries, things were going pretty damn well. By the year 1000, Kyiv had a population of 45,000.
45,000?
That's bigger than most modern-day music festivals.
That's insane.
They even managed to fight off a siege by the Pechenegs.
The Pechenegs?
Those nomadic warriors who were always causing trouble on the steppes.
Right.
45,000 people. Back when indoor plumbing was probably considered witchcraft.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
That's insane.
Big city.
But I'm guessing this good times party didn't last forever, right?
No.
History tends to fuck things up eventually.
It always does.
What happened?
Well, in 1240, Batu Khan and his Mongol horde decided to pay Kyiv a visit.
Oh shit, the Mongols.
And let's just say they weren't there to sample the local cuisine.
Those dudes were notorious for being ruthless as fuck.
Yeah.
What happened when they showed up at Kyiv's doorstep?
Imagine a scene straight out of Mad Max, but with horses and swords instead of souped-up cars.
Okay.
The Mongols laid siege to Kyiv, massacred the inhabitants, and burned the city to the ground. It was a bloodbath of epic proportions.
Yeah, that's fucked up. So basically the Mongols turned Kyiv into a giant pile of ashes.
Pretty much.
Did the city ever recover from that shit?
It took a long time, man. The Mongol invasion was a major turning point in Kyiv's history.
Yeah.
It went from being a thriving metropolis to a backwater province, constantly fought over by its more powerful neighbors.
So after the Mongol beatdown, Kyiv became the political football of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Sounds like a rough time to be a Kyiv resident.
It was. After the Mongols, control of Kyiv shifted between Lithuania, Poland, and eventually Russia.
Damn.
Imagine being a shopkeeper in Kyiv back then, having to switch your allegiance and pay taxes to a different king every other decade.
Talk about a headache. So basically, Kyiv went from being the center of attention to being the unwanted stepchild of Eastern Europe.
Pretty much.
Right.
Rough. But even in its darkest hours, Kyiv never completely lost its significance.
Okay.
It remained a spiritual and cultural center for the Eastern Slavic world, and its strategic location meant it would always be caught in the crossfire of empires.
Okay, so we've covered the founding myths, the Viking takeover, the rise of Orthodox Christianity, the Mongol apocalypse, and the endless game of political hot potato.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Sounds like Kyiv has seen more action than a Tarantino film.
Oh.
What's next on this historical roller coaster ride?
Next up, we'll dive into how Kyiv rose from the ashes of Mongol destruction and transformed itself into a modern metropolis.
Right.
Despite all the political turmoil and endless wars, get ready for some industrial revolution, cultural revival, and a whole lot of Russian bullshit.
All right, listeners, stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive into Kyiv's batshit crazy history.
It's kind of...
We'll be right back after a quick message from our sponsors. Don't touch that dial, motherfuckers.
Be right back. So we left off with Kyiv
Right.
getting tossed around like a cheap whore between Lithuania, Poland, and Russia.
Those poor bastards.
Around the 19th century, things start to let up.
Really?
It's like Kyiv finally catches a break,
Okay.
gets a makeover,
All right.
and becomes the hottest spot in town.
Okay, I'm all ears. What the hell happened that turned this historical punching bag into a goddamn metropolis?
Well,
Did they strike oil or something?
not oil, but close.
What is it?
It's the Industrial Revolution, baby.
Ah, the Industrial Revolution.
Europe's going through this massive economic boner.
Okay.
And Russia, despite being a bit of a late bloomer,
Yeah.
finally gets in on the action.
Oh.
Kyiv, sitting pretty on the Dnieper River, becomes a prime location for industry and trade.
So Kyiv's trading in its medieval rags for some factory-made threads.
Exactly.
Okay, I like it.
They're stepping up in the world.
What were they churning out in those factories anyway? Vodka and borscht.
Not quite,
Remember?
but they were pumping out sugar and grain.
Sugar and grain, okay.
Like a motherfucker.
I like it.
They even got those fancy new railroads,
Ooh, railroad.
connecting them to the rest of the empire.
Yeah.
And get this, they built the first electric tram line
Electric tram line.
in all of Russia,
Wait,
back in
ever.
1892, mind you.
Hold up. Electric trams in Kyiv before Paris and London.
That's right.
Damn, that's some futuristic shit for the time.
Yeah, ahead of the game.
So Kyiv's booming, making bank. Yeah. Riding around in electric trams.
They got it going on.
What's the catch?
Well, there's always a catch with Russia, isn't there?
Of course there is.
While Kyiv's economy is getting a hard-on,
Okay.
the Tsar decides to be a dick and crack down on Ukrainian culture.
No. Here we go.
They're banning books,
Son of a bitch.
shutting down theaters,
Oh, come on.
basically trying to Russify the whole damn place.
Classic Russia move.
Yeah.
Crush anything that doesn't fit their narrow-ass worldview.
That's how they do.
So did the Ukrainians just roll over and take it?
No.
Okay.
They went full on rebel mode.
Right.
They start printing books in secret,
Oh, sneak.
organizing underground theater performances,
I like it.
basically keeping their culture alive through sheer willpower.
That's some badass sneaky shit.
Yeah.
Sticking it to the man while pretending to play nice.
Yeah, they had to be smart about it.
But I'm guessing this cultural tug of war couldn't last forever.
No.
What happened when the whole world went to shit in World War II?
Oh, man.
What happened?
World War II was a whole new level of fucked up for Kyiv.
God.
In 1941,
Yeah.
the Nazis come knocking,
Oh, shit.
and things get brutal fast.
What happened?
The Battle of Kyiv was one of the largest encirclements in military history,
Really?
and the Soviets got their asses handed to them.
Damn.
Big time.
Hold on. I thought Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union back then.
They were.
Why were the Nazis fighting the Soviets on their own turf?
Hitler, that delusional asshole,
That son of a bitch.
saw Ukraine as nothing but a giant breadbasket ripe for the taking.
Oh, okay.
He wanted their fertile land to feed his Nazi empire.
Makes sense.
And Kyiv, being the capital of the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, was a prime target.
So basically, Hitler wanted to turn Ukraine into his personal farm.
Pretty much.
What a greedy prick.
Yeah.
What happened to Kyiv under Nazi occupation?
It was a goddamn nightmare.
Oh,
The
God.
Nazis looted the city,
Those bastards.
terrorized the population, and committed horrific atrocities.
Give me some details, man. What are we talking about?
We're talking mass executions,
Oh, Jesus.
forced labor,
Uh,
the whole 9 yards of Nazi bullshit.
okay, this is getting pretty heavy.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Wasn't there that whole Babi Yar massacre in Kyiv?
Yeah, that's right.
I remember reading about it. Thousands of Jews murdered by the Nazis.
Babi Yar was one of the most horrific events of the entire war.
What happened?
In September 1941, the Nazis rounded up nearly 34,000 Jews
You 4,000.
and shot them
Jesus.
in a ravine on the outskirts of the city.
Jesus Christ, 34,000 people in just 2 days.
It was a mass execution.
That's unfathomable.
It's pure evil, and that wasn't even the end of it.
Right.
Over the course of the occupation, over 100,000 people were murdered at Babi Yar.
100,000.
Jews, Roma, Soviet prisoners of war,
Oh my God.
anyone the Nazis considered undesirable.
Fuck, man.
It was brutal.
That's just, I don't even have words.
It's hard to comprehend.
So after the war, did Kyiv manage to rebuild after all that devastation?
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Despite the unimaginable horrors they endured,
Uh-huh.
the people of Kyiv rebuilt their city
Wow.
and even managed to thrive under Soviet rule?
Thrive under Soviet rule.
Yeah.
That sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It was a complicated situation.
Okay.
Kyiv became a major industrial and scientific center within the Soviet Union.
Really?
They had factories, universities, research institutions, the whole shebang.
Wow.
But it came at a price, of course.
What kind of price?
What kind of price? Don't tell me the Soviets tried to Russify Kyiv again. Oh, they definitely tried.
Those bastards.
They pushed the Russian language, suppressed Ukrainian culture, and basically tried to erase any sense of Ukrainian identity.
God, they never quit, do they?
They don't.
But just like during the Tsarist era, Ukrainians found ways to resist.
They always do.
They kept their language and traditions alive, even under the watchful eye of the KGB.
It's impressive.
So Kyiv's basically a city that refuses to be silenced, no matter who's trying to shut them up.
Exactly.
But hold on, didn't that whole Chernobyl disaster happen just a stone's throw from Kyiv?
Yeah, that's right.
I thought it was pretty close.
In 1986,
Yeah.
the Chernobyl nuclear power plant,
Right.
about 60 miles north of Kyiv.
That's way too close for comfort.
Yeah, it was a major disaster.
Doing kaboom.
It was the worst nuclear disaster in history.
I bet that freaked everyone the fuck out in Kyiv.
You bet it did.
60 miles, Jesus.
The radioactive fallout spread far and wide, contaminating huge swaths of land.
So Chernobyl basically shit all over Ukraine, including Kyiv.
It had a major impact.
What was the long-term impact of that disaster?
Well, the immediate impact was devastating, of course.
Of course.
Thousands of people were exposed to radiation, and the economic and environmental consequences were massive.
Yeah.
But Chernobyl also became a symbol of Soviet incompetence and secrecy.
Right.
It showed the world that the Soviet system was rotten to its core.
So Chernobyl was like a giant radioactive middle finger to the Soviet Union.
Pretty much.
Talk about karma. But what about Kyiv? Did they ever manage to shake off the shadow of Chernobyl?
It took a long time, but Kyiv eventually bounced back.
Good for them.
And then in 1991,
Yeah.
the unthinkable happened.
What happened?
The Soviet Union collapsed.
Hold up, rewind that the Soviet Union just poof, gone. Just like that.
It was a wild time, man.
I bet.
Years of economic stagnation,
Right?
political turmoil, and nationalist movements
Yeah.
finally culminated in the implosion of the Soviet Empire.
So what happened to Kyiv when the Soviet Union went belly up?
Well, Kyiv became the capital of an independent Ukraine,
Right?
free from the shackles of Soviet rule.
That's what I'm talking about.
It was a moment of euphoria,
I bet.
a new dawn for the city and the entire country.
Yeah.
But it also marked the beginning of a new chapter full of challenges and uncertainties.
Challenges? You mean like figuring out how to run a country after decades of being under the Soviet boot?
Exactly. The transition from a communist system to a market economy was rough. There was corruption, economic instability, and a whole lot of confusion.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then, of course, there was Russia.
Oh, here we go.
What?
I knew Russia wouldn't just let Ukraine walk away without a fight.
You know,
Those bastards.
the Kremlin wasn't exactly thrilled about losing its grip on Ukraine,
Of course not.
especially a strategically important city like Kyiv.
Right?
And they weren't shy about using their influence to try and keep Ukraine under their thumb.
So what did Russia do? Start sending tanks across the border?
Not right away.
Okay.
But they used all sorts of sneaky tactics.
Like what?
Economic pressure,
Uh-huh.
political interference, propaganda, you name it.
Those sneaky bastards.
They even started supporting separatists in eastern Ukraine,
Oh, yeah.
hoping to destabilize the country and keep it weak.
So Ukraine was basically getting fucked from both sides.
It was a tough time.
A corrupt government that had just been overthrown, and a hostile neighbor looking to carve up their territory.
Exactly.
What the hell happened to Kyiv during all this?
Kyiv became the heart of Ukrainian resistance.
Really?
The city rallied behind the new government and the Ukrainian army, sending volunteers and supplies to the front lines.
Nice.
They built barricades, organized medical units, and prepared for a potential Russian attack.
So Kyiv was basically a city under siege, preparing for a fight they didn't ask for.
Exactly.
And in 2022, the shit really hit the fan.
It did.
What happened?
Putin, delusional and power-hungry,
Son of a bitch.
decided to launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
A full-scale
Just
invasion?
meaning to topple the government and install a puppet regime.
What a full-on invasion, like tanks rolling into cities, bombs dropping, the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
Holy shit.
Putin thought he could conquer Ukraine in a few days.
What an idiot.
But he severely underestimated the Ukrainian people's fighting spirit,
I bet.
especially in Kyiv.
So what happened when the Russian army showed up at Kyiv's doorstep? Did they just roll over and surrender?
Hell no.
Okay, good. They fought like cornered badgers.
That's what I'm talking about.
Civilians took up arms,
Get the fuck out.
joining the territorial defense forces. Alongside the regular army,
Wow.
they ambushed Russian convoys,
Holy shit.
sabotaged infrastructure,
That's awesome.
and basically made the Russians' lives a living hell.
Damn, those Kyiv folks are hardcore.
They are.
So did they manage to stop the Russian advance?
They did.
Get the fuck out of here.
After weeks of intense fighting,
Yeah,
the Russians were forced to retreat from Kyiv.
that's amazing.
It was a humiliating defeat for Putin,
I bet it was.
and it showed the world that Ukrainians were willing to fight to the death for their freedom.
So Kyiv basically told Putin to go fuck himself.
In so many words, yes.
I love it.
But the war is far from over.
Oh, Russia is still pounding Ukrainian cities with missiles.
Oh, those assholes.
And the fighting in the east continues. Man,
Man, this whole situation's just fucked up.
It is.
What's the takeaway from all this?
Well,
Besides the obvious,
Kyiv's story is a testament to the human spirit's resilience.
Okay.
It's a city
Yeah.
that's been invaded,
Right.
occupied, and nearly destroyed
So many times.
countless times throughout its history,
Yeah.
but it always manages to rise from the ashes
Damn straight.
like a phoenix.
They're like the cockroaches of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
You just can't kill them.
That's one way to put it.
I mean, they just keep coming back.
They do, and they're not just surviving.
Yeah.
They're fighting back,
Yeah.
defending their freedom, and their right to choose their own future.
Well, there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour through the blood-soaked, batshit crazy history of Kyiv.
It's been a wild ride.
One thing's for sure. Those Kyiv folks are tougher than a $2 steak.
Absolutely. They're an inspiration to anyone who believes in freedom and democracy.
Damn right. Stay curious, motherfuckers.